Hello, and thank you for your participation in today's workshop, Fall Prevention Conversation Tips for Caregivers. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to review some general rules for the workshop. Please stay muted for the duration of the workshop. You will know that you are muted if you see a red slash through your microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. All workshops will be recorded and uploaded to our website at a later date for others to view. If you do not wish to have your video appear in the recording, please disable your video. To ensure that you have a good view of the speakers at all times, please select Speaker View. You can adjust the setting in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Please type any questions that you may have in the chat box. There will be time at the end of the workshop for our speaker to answer questions. Our speaker for today's workshop is Martha Granion. She is the Executive Vice President at Southern Caregiver Resource Center. She first became involved with SCRC while she was taking care of her 93-year-old great aunt who had dementia. Her background is in health and public policy and has extensive experience conducting presentations and managing educational campaigns. Please join me in welcoming Martha.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. And even though we're doing things virtually, I think this is such a great topic. And I'm so glad that so many of you are here today. I encourage you to have a piece of paper handy, something to write with, maybe something to drink, water to stay hydrated. It's kind of hot. But I do want to be able to engage with you as much as I can so that we can take this conversation as a tool for you when you go home when caring for, or you, I should say, when you go back to caring for your loved ones, since I'm sure a lot of you are home. So today's topic is fall prevention, and we are specifically going to be talking about how to help the caregiver. Now, at Southern Caregiver Resource Center, we focus a lot on helping the caregiver and finding ways to kind of mitigate some of the challenges that you might be facing, given the fact that everyone has a very different caregiving situation. So, today's objectives, if I can go to the next slide, are going to be talking about fall prevention. I know a lot of you have been participating in these this week's activities, and that is so wonderful to see so many of you participating, but also to be able to engage others to these wonderful resources. We're going to talk about some risk factors. We're going to talk about starting that conversation, maybe with your friends, family, healthcare providers, develop a plan of action, and then how to connect with other organizations and community resources. Of course, we're going to do this in an hour, but I do want to give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end. I understand that there is also the chat box feature, so feel free to put any questions there or any comments, and I'll do my best to toggle between the presentation and reading the questions. So let's get started. And let me ask you, and maybe you can put in the chat feature since we're talking about this. How many of you have fallen before? Anybody have experienced a fall? And, again, feel free to put in your chat box. I just want to kind of get an idea because I know that for a lot of us, uh, this has been an experience, whether we were aware of it or not. Usually we're not aware of it. And it is something to think about as we move forward with the people that we are caring for, but also as caregivers. Many times somebody is saying yes. So if we go to the next, click on the next part of the slide here, sometimes it could be that we fall because of medication, right? Maybe the medication is having some sort of a counter effect and is making us groggy or drowsy. The next click here is maybe we don't gauge properly the distance between objects. So take it, for example, the toilet seat. Maybe we're waking up in the middle of the night and we don't realize where the toilet seat is, or even a chair as we're sitting down to maybe the computer or to work. Maybe as we go to the next click, the lighting could be an issue, right? A lot of us, as we get older, we need more light. I don't know about you, but sometimes I find myself turning on more lights than I used to, so that I'm able to see better. There could also be steps, right? Negotiating steps might be something that is tricky for some of us. Maybe we're a little bit stiff, and that goes to my next part of the slide here. Our joints are a little stiff, or maybe we have some pain on our knees. And so going up and down the stairs might not be as easy. So thank you so much for writing on the chat. I really appreciate it. I try to make it as engaging as possible, but I just want you to give you this visual, because for a lot of us, especially, you know yourself, you know if you are very accident prone or that you fall frequently. But if we are noticing that in ourselves and or the people that we're caring for, then that's something to really keep an eye out on. And we're going to talk about how we can do that. So in here on your reactions button, hopefully everybody can see it down on the tab here on the bottom. Show of hands. How many of you know that the leading cause of fatal and non-fatal injuries for older Americans is something that we should all be aware? So hopefully you can put up, your thumbs up or the clapping icon, because it is something that happens very frequently. Actually, 1 in 4 older adults fall each year. And some of these falls could be avoided. It's not necessarily having to do with limiting your activity, but actually increasing your strength and preventing by looking at our environment as well. So let's go to the next one. So how do we do that? It's actually a lot of times caregivers tell me, well, I can't control everything. I don't know when I'm gonna fall. That is true. But there are some ways that we can think about how we do that. So I want you to really think about your environment as you're sitting here right now. Think about not only your home environment, but where you frequent. Maybe your patio, maybe a friend's house. And I know it's very limited right now with social distancing, but even if you have to go to work, and you're rushing, what are some of the impediments? What are some of the trip hazards that are obvious as you go in and out of places? And then, of course, with the next click here, we are all here to help. Collectively, we are here to help you. I love that the topic, fall prevention happens in the fall, to trigger your mind to really think about it and maybe do some rearranging or reassessing of your home and your environment. So some of the risk factors are all around us, and they can be physical and something that is within us. And that's why, earlier talked about some maybe pain or joint limitations, but also lifestyle and some behavioral activities, as well as our environment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really tease out a little bit more each of these different points that I'm trying to make here. So with our physical risk factors, okay, so we know that in the vulnerable population, maybe the people who we are caring for, age might be an issue, right? That maybe that they are not as nimble and as able to do the things that they used to do on a day-to-day basis. Maybe there is some cognitive impairment. And we know that if people have, for example, in advanced stages of Alzheimer's disease, that they are not able to decipher items that have, through their poor vision and maybe some hearing, they're not able to fully assess how close or far away things are. Maybe they have some sort of a physical disability or imbalance. And so I want you to really think about it. Maybe if we can't, if I can't see your reactions, just let's pretend that we're all in the same room and give me a thumbs up if you've ever had to reach for something that was high on your kitchen shelf. I know I have had to do that, and I'm not that tall. You can't tell right now because I'm sitting down, but it's something that I have to do on a pretty much daily basis. If I want to reach for a plate or a cup, I really have to reach up high. And so I want to make sure that I don't fall. So there are things that I need to consider for myself every day. So if we go to lifestyle and behavioral risk factors, it's really important to know the person that you're caring for, but also to know their limitations. A person, and we hear this a lot, that especially in the elderly, that once they fall, that they have a fear of falling again for obvious reasons. It's painful, it takes longer to heal, but we don't want that person to then stop going outside or stop walking because of that fear of falling again. So instead of getting to that point, let's backtrack a little and prevent the falling from happening. Risk-taking behavior. So I just gave you an example of the kitchen, right? And I'm going to stay with this example for a little bit, because if I constantly try to tiptoe my way into reaching something that's high above me, and I'm even thinking about my kitchen, if I want to reach something that's above my stove, I might get burned, or I might, trip something or trip myself and then get burned, water, liquid, etc. So standing on a precarious ladder, for example, is probably risky behavior that we need to think about. Um, my father-in-law, for example, needed to use a cane, and he was getting elderly and he was having some balance issues, but he refused to use a cane. He just refused. It was one of those things that he didn't want to do, and still was adamant about using the upstairs bedroom. And so that was something that we needed to make sure that he understood and that we all talked about, because that was a potential fall. Poor nutrition, hydration. It's like, think about it, when you don't eat and your blood sugar levels go down, right? It's then your head hurts and you're not in your right frame of mind. So good nutrition is important, and of course staying hydrated, especially during this time that it's pretty hot. Exercise is really important to maintain that ability to be flexible and be limber. And sometimes I even say, think about all of you who are listening today, who are caregivers, or friends of caregivers, or just are walking around your home. If I have little children, so right now they're really into Legos, and many times when I walk into their bedroom, I am about to step on a Lego, and you know how much that can hurt. And so what I do is I kind of do a little quick jump, and I instead of stepping, I notice that there's a Lego, and I jump on the other foot and then avoid stepping. But even that quick jump from one foot to the other could cause me to fall if I am not paying attention. So again, we need to make sure that the floors have been cleared. And then, of course, medications. We know that a lot of medications can make our us groggy, so we need to make sure that we talk to our doctors. That if we're going to take medication during a certain time, that we know that maybe we kind of just stay put for a little bit. Maybe that's something we can take at night when we're going to go to sleep, rather than in the morning when we're getting up and doing activities. So with the next slide, we're talking about environmental factors. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to do a little exercise later in the home. But for example, we look at your home, what things are out there that could be a potential risk factor. Is there a lot of furniture? Are there some rugs that maybe get in the way? Also, the outdoors, transitioning in and out. When I was a caregiver, as they mentioned earlier, and when they introduced me, I was caring for my great aunt. She was 93. She had dementia, and she was also very frail. And so, as the caregiver, I knew that I couldn't expect her to do things quickly. So, if I, for example, let's say she was eating and she sat down to maybe, just kind of watch TV or whatever it was, I needed to make sure that if she was going to go to the restroom, that it wasn't going to be an emergency. So I gave her enough time to transition to that activity. Same thing with going outside. I actually have to go outside, I have to take some steps. And I didn't want her falling. So I needed to make sure that I had grab bars inside and outside so that she could hold on to the grab bar as she stepped in to the house and out of the house. I have here loud noises. Of course, sometimes, we get startled and we could react and, of course, fall. But uneven and slippery floors, what I wanted to say about this is I understand that, it doesn't snow in California, in Southern California, I should say. In San Diego, it doesn't snow. So we don't have to worry about slipping on snow as we're walking down the street. However, I live in an older neighborhood, and I become so aware of the unevenness of the sidewalks, and trees uprooting the cement and the sidewalks kind of being very uneven. And sometimes the city will come and they will try to level them off, but then it kind of keeps happening as the ground moves. So even those things, if you're going to take a walk with your loved ones, make sure you know where you're going, so that if you've noticed those uneven sidewalks, that they don't become a trip hazard for them, and then you having to quickly hold on to them in the middle of the street and then cause another problem for yourself. So how do we start this conversation? And this is kind of a standalone slide here, because I know it's not easy. As a caregiver, I know that many times I had to broach conversations that were not popular, that were not easy, and everyone had an opinion. So the best thing that I suggest is educate yourselves. So you're here today, and again, I commend you for being here and for taking notes. Participate in all of the different conversations that are taking place this week. If you don't have the flyer, I'm sure somebody will share that with you, or maybe we can post it later. Participate in all those wonderful talks, because the more you educate yourself about what's available and how you can utilize some of these tools in your caregiving responsibilities, the better off you'll be. Be considerate. I know it's not easy to tell someone, hey, you're going to fall if you don't do this. We need to be mindful of the tone and the body language that we're using, but also to be aware of how we validate feelings. There is a big connection with talking about these issues and feeling of losing independence. And for a lot of care receivers, that is kind of like the first step, the first reaction is, you're limiting my independence. You want me to use a cane, speaking on behalf of my father-in-law, you want me to use a cane, and that means that I am now very limited in what I can do. So we need to reframe those conversations, and we need to do it from a angle of compassion and care, and of course, education and awareness. And that takes me to my next slide. And so I wanted to read this quote to you, but and there are several ones that I have, and kind of dissect what we mean. So for example, this one says, you are important to me. I know that you want to be independent and stay in your home, but I don't want you to fall and get hurt. So that is showing care. That is showing that I know you want your independence, and I want to give that to you. I want to be supportive of you to do that, but I don't want you to get hurt. So let's figure out a way to help you, to help me, so that we don't run into an emergency. So that's one way that you can start this conversation. Another way is to be active and be helpful in how you can better stay independent and feel like you still have a life that is dictated by you. So of course, this is prevention, right? We want you to keep staying at home and doing what you want to do. Let's just make sure that we prevent any falls from happening. Another conversation starter is to, hey, maybe we should set up an appointment to get your vision checked. maybe every 1 or 2 years, because you might need glasses or contacts. And again, this doesn't come across as you must be blind. Can you see that step? Instead, it's, hey, here's a way that we can prevent a fall. Let's check your eyesight. And I don't know about you, but having to do a lot of Zooming and a lot of virtual work now, I'm starting to wear my glasses a lot more. I only used to use them for limited needs, but now I'm using them a lot more. And so I rather use them for accessibility than to maybe trip because I'm not seeing properly. And I really like this one. This is a great opportunity for caregivers and care receivers to do something together. And this one says, "Hey, let's sign up for a Tai Chi class together." And I know that was part of your presentation this week, so I was so glad to see that. Tai Chi is a mind and body experience. It helps with balance. It really is also very meditative, so it helps you to relax. And it's a bonding activity that you can do with the care receiver. If there are mobility issues or balance issues, you can even do a hybrid of sitting stretches, yoga, etc., that could help. So with developing a plan, we want to do the following, and this is why I wanted to put these up here for you. The first step, and again, we're going to go into these if you're taking notes, is to do a home assessment. Exactly what that means. We're going to assess the home to make sure that whatever your home looks like, that you can be a little bit more vigilant and aware of how to prevent some of these falls. Of course, communicating with your health providers is important, especially as it relates to any medication. And then, of course, increasing physical health, because we know that the more exercise we do, the more flexible we are, which means when it comes time to stepping over something or stepping onto a step or down from a step, that we're able to do that. So I want you to do something with me here, and I hope that you can participate. And you don't have to go anywhere, just sitting where you are is fine. I want you to take a virtual tour of your home. So come outside of your home, just visually, okay? Imagine that you are standing outside of your door and you're opening the door. As you open your door, I want you to visualize what your living room looks like, okay? And again, hopefully you have a piece of paper and something to write with. But as you are visually traveling into your living room, I want you to notice if there are any loose rugs. And if there are, write them down. Living room, point number 1, loose rugs, because that could be a trip hazard. We're going to find all the trip hazards. Is there excess furniture? Especially if the caregiver is living with someone, let's say the care receiver, who has a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, having a lot of furniture is going to get in the way, and it's going to make it very difficult to maneuver any corners. So let's think about excess furniture. How about going up and down stairs? Do you need any grab bars to go up and down stairs? My home, for example, when my father-in-law used to come and visit, we live in a little bit of an incline. So to get to my front door, you actually had to maneuver at the incline and then some steps. So guess what? That was a difficult thing for him to do. So we actually installed a handrail all the way from the sidewalk to the first step. And then with each handrail, we installed a secondary handrail so that now he had 2 as he went up the steps to the front of the house. So I'm not even in my house, and I already figured that I needed to install these tools. So again, look at your living room. If you can declutter, sometimes after living there for, in a home for 30 plus years, you start accumulating things. Is it necessary to have those 5 potted plants in a corner, or can 1 suffice? And again, ample walking space, any cords that you see in your living room that are maybe should be moved away. Lighting, this is a really important one. If I have to walk across the living room to turn on a light switch, I'm probably going to trip if I don't see that there is a, I don't know, a rug or a shirt or a shoe on the floor. Okay, so that's your homework to assess your living room. We're going to go to the bedroom now. But to go to the bedroom, you probably have to walk through the hallway. So what does the hallway look like for you? Again, write down on your piece of paper, hallway. Is it lit? Are there steps? If there are, is there a sturdy handrail, or is it coming loose? Maybe we need to bolt it back into the wall. Now you're in the bedroom. What does the bedroom look like? And actually, if you can switch to the next slide, I get a little bit more specific. Thank you. Is there a light source next to the bed? And that's kind of similar to what I talked about in the living room. If you have to, imagine again, put yourselves in the shoes of the care receiver, the person that you're caring for. If you wake up in the middle of the night, do you have to walk across the room to turn on the light, or is there a lamp right next to you? And we have a lot of options. Right now, you can do the lights that you can clap and they turn on, or some of them that you touch and they turn on. Some of them are motion sensor. Consider some of those, and they're available in home goods stores anywhere. Again, electrical cords, probably an electric blanket is not a good idea, because then the cords could get in the way. I know sometimes people get really cold, but maybe you invest in maybe flannel sheets or flannel pajamas. The next one with the closet is really important. I remember with my great aunt, who I was caring for in my home, it wasn't really easy for her to reach up high to get her clothes. So what I would do is I would make sure that I put her clothes on the bed at night. So when she would wake up, they would be right there. Or I could do it early in the morning before she woke up, and then they were easily accessible for her. Also, if you need to lower or increase the height of the bed, there are some assistive devices that you can do that. And then this was such a great tip that I heard from someone, a caregiver, saying that maybe having a chair in the room so that they can sit and dress themselves rather than doing it on the bed, if possible. I know it's not always the case for everybody, but then it's something sturdy. It's something that they could utilize to push up instead of doing it standing up. That could also be helpful. So the next one is the bathroom. Again, how far is the bathroom from the bedroom that this person is occupying? Are they having to walk all across the house to get to the bathroom? Is it lit on the way to the bathroom? Maybe there are no handrails and the person could trip getting there. Again, these are things that I had to think about as a caregiver. And actually, Jimmy rigged a grab bar that I would put on at night, and then during the day I would take off, because I didn't want her to fall in the middle of the night when she went to the bathroom. So again, the obvious is grab bars and non-skid mats. I really want to make sure and emphasize, if there is no need to have a mat on the floor of the bathroom, then remove it. I know it's cold, but a little bit cold is okay, rather than falling and having a bigger problem. Maybe also installing seat risers, whether it's for the toilet or a bath seat for those with limited mobility in the actual shower. That might help people while showering. The next one, I want you to think about, all of you who are listening, what color is your bathroom? Most people have a white toilet with a white sink and a white floor and white walls. That's a lot of monochromatic tones that a person, again, with vision limitations or maybe cognitive impairment, might not be able to decipher the difference between the floor, the toilet seat, the sink. And that's, again, where falls could happen. A lot of falls tend to happen in the bathroom. So really think about maybe putting something you don't have to remodel your whole bathroom. If you want to, that's fine. But maybe you put some colored tape. There are a lot of options now, and really some funky designs that you can use. Maybe have a toilet seat, the different color, and you can change the toilet seat. That gives you that ability to decipher from something that's monochromatic. And then, of course, handrails, places to be able to hold on to lift and to sit. And if the person has very limited mobility, then think about removing the lock from the door so that you're able to walk in there in case there's an emergency. Kitchen. So again, these are a lot of things to be aware of. What does your kitchen look like? What are things, how are things placed in your kitchen? Some people have great kitchens and they're clutter free. Some might not. And if you do, try thinking about how can you clear up some of this potential hazard. Do you have sharp objects or poisonous items, maybe removing some of them, unplugging things that are not necessary to avoid those loose cords? I also want to really emphasize, if you have a fire extinguisher, make sure that it's updated. They kind of go, after a while, they're not good anymore. But also make sure you know how to use it. There's no point in having a fire extinguisher if you don't know how to use it. So make sure that you know how to use it. If you are caring for someone who has dementia, who has cognitive impairment, make sure that they are not really tinkering around the stove. If that's something that you are having a problem with as a caregiver, make sure you talk to family members and maybe take steps to prevent any fire hazard. For example, removing stove knobs could be an option, or really giving them activities that don't require using the stove. They could still help you with cooking dinner, but maybe it's something that they could do at the dining room table. And of course, fall prevention. We want to make sure that if you have any rugs, that you remove them. That if things are too out of the way to reach, that you find better ways to keep them accessible. I want to talk about the microwave. The microwave, and I've seen some kitchens, and I don't know if this is something that you have in your kitchen, but again, really think about this. If you're one of those people who has a kitchen with a microwave above the stove, really think about that. Because as you're opening and you're bringing out things that are hot, that can burn your fingers, and then you're cooking over the stove that has maybe liquids that are boiling, that could be a hazard for you. So make sure you really think about the positioning of certain items and appliances. If we go to the next slide, and again, I'll give you an opportunity to write down your notes for each of your for your home. I want you to also consider communicating with your health provider the following. Okay, all of us are aging every year, every day, and so our health conditions might change. And with changing health conditions, our needs for either medication or nutrition might change as well. So it's very important to maintain that communication with your healthcare providers. In this case, I'm talking about the yearly and regular vision checkups. Obviously, it's something that right now it's very limiting for a lot of people. But when we go back to maybe regularly scheduling those checkups, make sure you do. And make sure you also do that for yourself as the care provider, the caregiver. Our vision changes. I know that after 40, that's a big change in our vision. And a person over 80 needs about 3 times more light than a 15-year-old. So again, if you're walking through your home and you figured I have a light on, this should be enough, but you notice that it's not enough, then consider installing additional lighting sources. Monitor your medication and also sleep routine. if you know that you are having issues with establishing a sleep routine, then maybe change some of the activities that you do during the day. Don't do exercise right before you go to sleep because your adrenaline is pumping, and you might be more hyper than and not be able to go to sleep. Maybe don't have a big meal because that's going to be not helping you with digestion during the night. And then of course, and that means when you wake up, you're groggy, you're not as able to react to what might be happening in your surroundings. And of course, anything that might be alerting to that's necessary to alert the healthcare provider, make sure you let them know that, such as behavioral changes. So here we have some ideas to increase our physical activity. So I want to talk about, and again, this is part of what you can do in your little sheet right here. I want you to think about, what is it that you are doing right now during this time or as a caregiver to really maintain your health. Now, I know that before this social distancing and before the pandemic, I was really struggling to try to maintain a regular physical health routine. And that's because I was, working and picking up kids and dropping them off and taking them to practice. And so I was very limited in my day. Now that we are all here together, I am finding that I actually have a little bit more time to do these things. So, what I've gotten creative in doing is sometimes I take phone calls as I walk around my block. And it's a way to go outside, to get some fresh air, to do exercise, and I'm still working. You might be able to do that with your care receiver. Maybe go around the block, go to the local park, and just walk around, do a little bit of exercise, go outside. Right now, we have beautiful weather, and let's take advantage of that. So, getting back to the healthy habits, that includes making sure that you know yourself best. If you're doing some things that are not as healthy as they should be, make sure you assess those. And of course, I'm talking about smoking or drinking or even not sleeping properly. Um, Make sure that you really assess how your situation is. Healthy meals. Now, this is something that we talk to caregivers about. Is I know you're so focused on the care receiver, making sure they eat well, they eat properly, and they do all of the things that need to be done for their optimal health. But you need to do that as well. So if you say, well, Martha, I have no time to prepare meals for myself, how about some healthy snacks? How about some grapes? How about some water bottles that you can carry around with you? Healthy snacks don't have to, we think of snacks and we think of chips and maybe some fried foods, but they don't have to be that. They could be nuts, granola bars, maybe some hydrated fruit, whatever might be that you can kind of grab quickly as you move around your day. Now, there are some exercise that people can do to reduce pain. And again, you had that presentation, I think it was yesterday, on Tai Chi. So that is a great option, as well as yoga. But there's also some stretch exercises. And I know that you've seen those stretch bands that you might use as you're sitting down, and kind of put in between your legs and try to lift your feet and your arms as well. That helps with stretching, which again helps you with mobility. There are stress balls that you could use to exercise your fingers. I've talked about this before, where we don't even think about our hands. Sometimes we just assume that they're always there when we need them. And then when we have pain, that's when we notice them. Same thing with our knees, right? So, what I suggest is get a nice stress ball and really try to utilize all of your fingers, because guess what? As care providers, we're moving very quickly all the time, turning on keys, opening doors, opening items for our care receiver, lifting, pushing, pulling, putting things over their heads, and then we get hurt. So it is very important for us as caregivers to also take care of our physical health. Daily walks, make it a point. If you can have somebody give you a couple of minutes to care for that individual that you're caring for, go out for a walk, especially right now that, again, the weather's so beautiful before it starts raining. This is the time for you to incorporate some of these activities. So this is something that I know that this whole week is trying to really reiterate to all of us who are here, that falls are something that just have that are not just something that happens when you age, and that there are ways to reduce these. We don't have to be victims of unnecessary falls, right? And this is why earlier I asked, because all of us have fallen, whether we're wearing shoes that we probably shouldn't be wearing, or we're maybe carrying too much and didn't see that step, or we're just hurried, we're so running from one place to another that we just trip over something. We can reduce those falls if we kind of just take the time to, again, assess, take care of our needs, and just maybe take a breath as we move forward during all of the things that you are balancing as a caregiver. So with the next click, this is a good place to really start this conversation. And that was my hope today, that we can start the conversation on how to get you connected to resources and to people who can help you prevent any falls. So if we go to the next slide, here is a list of all of our resources that we offer. And we work so closely with the County of San Diego, and they have such great programs. And some of these programs are actually funded by the County of San Diego, and we're so happy to be the leading provider for caregiver services. But as you can see, there is a lot that you as a caregiver can utilize in your situation. There's counseling, there are case management that we can do for you. There is a class that's called Reach to Caregiver, which helps you if you're caring for someone with dementia, Alzheimer's, or memory loss, and really give you a good understanding of how to maneuver those behaviors and how to achieve some of the challenges that you probably are facing. Together, we can be there for you. But the next slide is our iCare portal. And this is actually something that we started a couple of years ago. And I'm so glad that we did, because now that we're going through this situation where we're kind of working from home, you can still access a lot of these services online. That's the beauty about this. If you really think about it, we have what is called a caregiving corner. So if you only have 1 minute to learn anything, click on one of these videos and it will give you some tips for caregivers that you can utilize. We have a podcast where we talk about some of these very challenging topics like end of life. We actually have had several county departments participate in our podcast because they have such great resources, and it's a good way for you to listen to some of the ways that you can engage your family as well as the care receiver to talk about these difficult topics. We have some live stream classes, and actually the latest one that we did was caring for or caregiving while also caring for children during COVID. So we actually gave a couple of tips on how to do that and how to keep not only the children entertained, but the elderly individuals that you might be caring for during this time, because a lot of us having to be at home are now really trying to balance a lot of different roles, and there are no boundaries now, and everything's kind of muddled together. And so we really want to make sure you know that we're here to help. And then of course we have our digital newsletter, which has a lot of great videos and resources and articles, as well as some fun brain games that you can do to keep you and the person you're caring for entertained. The next slide is our social media. So of course, this is a good way to get some updates, to see what's coming. We actually promote a lot of the activities that the county does on our social media. So it's a good way for you to stay connected. And then of course, I do want to give you our contact info if you don't have that already, because it's really important to, as a caregiver, to find out what else you can utilize for yourself and your family. I know situations change, so if you can switch the slide. Situations change in your caregiving role as people progress, as diseases become more prevalent, as other things start happening. You don't have to do it alone. Caregiving is hard enough. Let us help you. And another a couple more resources, because I always want to give resources before I end the conversation, is we have here the County of San Diego is a great resource. We have a really robust county with a lot of great resources, so make sure you connect with them. The CDC has a lot of great resources as well. This whole week, Fall Prevention Week, is really exciting to see how much there is and how many speakers there are, which I'm sure you can connect with them afterwards. Your local senior centers, depending on where you live. I know that in San Diego, the senior centers have been doing a lot to make sure that seniors stay connected. And even though we're all physically, socially isolated, doesn't mean that you have to cease all communications. So some of them are really doing a great job in keeping you connected. And of course, the hqinstitute.org, which is actually a lot of the information that you saw here is also there. They talk about how to prevent falls, what to do after a fall, how to make sure that you assess your situation. So I really hope that this conversation was fruitful, that it was an added tool for your caregiving toolbox. And at this point, I do want to give an opportunity for you to ask any questions, and hopefully I can get them answered. If you want to put them on the chat box, that is fine. Or if any of you want to actually speak them, I don't know how we can unmute any calls, but I just wanted to leave some time to make sure that if anybody has any questions, that we're here.
So if there aren't any questions, or if you have questions that come up later, feel free to email them to healthierliving.hhsa@sdcounty.ca.gov. And we will be sure to answer any questions that you may have after this. Thank you again for your participation in today's workshop, and a special thanks for our speaker, Martha. This was very informational and great information for people to have, especially during this time. If you haven't already, we encourage you to look over our calendar of events for Fall Prevention Awareness Week. Registration is still open for many of the workshops. For additional details about this calendar of events or to register for more workshops, please visit www.sandiegofallprevention.org. Thank you again, Martha. If there aren't any more questions, then we'll go ahead and end.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure to see so many of you here. And again, we're here to help you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe.